I really don't know how good PartinG currently is. So after he came back from his mandatory military service, he has been playing a little bit here and there. And obviously, I mean, he's one of my all-time favorite Protoss players. He's one of the very best Protoss players historically. Obviously, he's good. But is he capable of taking down one of the greatest Zerg players in the world? Spawning right here in the top left-hand corner, as you may have already guessed, we have none other than PartinG, his opponent, joined by himself on the main hatchery. We're looking at none other than Dark's main base. Ooh, alright. Dark going for a cheeky little proxy hatch. I like this, right? So Dark is incredibly good when it comes to playing chaotic games of StarCraft. Wait, what? Oh, he's actually gonna expand first at home. And this is just gonna turn into a glorified drone scout? Alright, interesting decision here. Anyways, Dark is very good at playing chaotic games, right? And generally speaking, Protoss, very build order dependent. Now, PartinG is definitely someone who, when he was at the top of his game, was very good at playing chaotic games as well, but I would imagine that right now, at the very least, Dark is going to be the clear favorite going into this particular match. I have seen a bunch of games of PartinG go, and he has looked very impressive, right? He can certainly compete with players that aren't like, I want to say maybe like the top 25 of the game or so. Obviously, Dark is within the top 25. Problem for PartinG is that Dark is probably also within like the top 5 overall, which makes it a little bit trickier. Either way, we'll find out together how this series ended up going down. So a little bit of shenanigans here early on. PartinG tried blocking his opponent's natural. Dark tried, well, blocking PartinG's natural, and ultimately both of them are just building their expansions right where, well, they were intended to be. I was gonna say right where God intended them, but maybe the map maker. Although I don't think map makers are considered to be God. Anyways, or maybe they are. I don't know. I'm sure they would like to hear that. It's gonna be an adept first right here, and I'm assuming it will be a Stargate follow-up. Problem for PartinG is that he still has this drone going around. Yeah. Super annoying. You don't really want to plant down your tech structure right in the middle of where... Did he just queue up a stalker? He did. I was wondering where that gas went. Yeah, you don't really want to put up your tech structure right in the middle of your opponent's vision, but at this point, it's so incredibly late. What do we do? Twilight Council now. Okay. So that is about a good, I want to say, 30, 45-ish seconds later than it could have been planted. Maybe even more than that, to be honest. That is a very late Twilight Council. What in the world are we gonna go for now? Glaives doesn't make sense, Blink doesn't make sense, Charge doesn't make sense. Dark Templar really doesn't make a lot of sense either, but I guess that is the most likely option? Problem right here, right, is that Dark has now seen exactly what is next to these pylons. So he just scouted over here with this Overlord, he's seen this pylon over here, he's seen the second pylon in the main base too. That is where the tech structure will go. And considering it is going to be a Dark Shrine, considering Dark has not seen, so this is quite clever actually from PartinG. Considering Dark has not seen a Stargate, the odds of him going for a Spore Crawler, they're not super high. Right? He's definitely not gonna build like blind Spore Crawlers at like 335, which is usually the norm if you don't know what you're playing against here as Zerg. But Dark right now, well, unless there's a third pylon hidden somewhere where you didn't know, which would be basically impossible at that stage in the game when the drone was there. Yeah, he's just gonna prepare for the inevitable. So, PartinG has decided that his strategy, his build of choice, is to Dark Templar rush one of the greatest Zerg players in the world. And he did it after his... It's actually quite clever, now that I think about it. Like, it's one of those things where it could work incredibly well and it could make you look incredibly smart. Unless your opponent just builds a Spore Crawler a little bit later on into the game, right? It's one of those, like, 200 IQ or 20 IQ moves. So, this is still gonna be about 4 minutes and 40-ish seconds on the Dark Templar warp in, which is still really quite quick. It's just that defensive Spore Crawlers are coming up. Is there a lair? No, there is no lair or anything like that here yet for Dark, but honestly, as long as the Spore Crawler is around, that is of course the detector, he should be okay. Okay, good save right here. Grabs them all. Adepts do decide to shade in, and, well, they're gonna be forced to recall all the way back. Brilliant stuff here, honestly, though. Looks like there was a little bit of a run by here, but brilliant stuff right here from Mr. PartinG. He's gonna try and see if he can snatch a couple of workers in the main base, but it turns out there was a Spore Crawler over there, too. I've always been a fan of this build, though. I mean, not the delayed version of it, but the one where you go Dark Templar into Archon drops. I think it's very powerful. It's just not currently the go-to preferred build order for any Protoss player. Apparently we're gonna ultimately use this as the janitor crew. Yeah, they're just gonna do a little bit of spring cleaning. I mean, spring cleaning is important, especially when it comes to shutting down your opponent's creep. So not actually morphing them into Archons. I think they are destined to become Archons here eventually. But, well, you would have to have a fourth one for it, I suppose. So, back on the Protoss side of the map, we've got ourselves a Blink follow-up right now together with the +1 ground. Robo Bay here, nice and quickly as well. Okay. All a little bit different than what we normally see. But this is quite annoying, though. I mean, denying creep spread is one of those things that it's quite difficult to quantify as, like, a observer to the game. It's just that any follow-up attacks from PartinG, and PartinG is certainly going to be aggressive here because he loves being aggressive, any follow-up attack is going to hit significantly harder because it's going to hit closer to the Zerg site, right? So rather than that fight taking place, I don't know, like right over here or so, or maybe right over here, I mean, if he gets a move on, he can fight pretty much right next to the natural expansion of the Zerg, and well, once you get into that intersection, you may get a couple of misrallied units, and yeah, creep spread really is an important part of things. So he's actually just using these Dark Templar as an harassment tool, which is kind of funny. Yeah. Historically, they've always been like, hey, I got you now. I win the video game because you didn't make detection, right? And then they became, oh, okay, you got detection. I'm going to morph them into Archons and harass you a little bit longer. Apparently now PartinG is just going to continue the harassment here, despite the detection here of the opponent. Now, there is a Spire, so that is going to be the light at the end of the tunnel. He's going to try and save the Spore. I think he will get it. We'll get a couple drones, though. Lovely work here. I really like, actually, what PartinG is doing. That's not a way that we usually see Dark Templar being used. Anyways, the light at the end of the tunnel comes by the name of the Mutalisk. Mutas are going to be fantastic. Yep. If the Prism goes down, we will never see Archons. Well, maybe we will see Archons if units decide to get morphed in again at home, but these guys, they want to be that power that's overwhelming. If he flies home right now, that would be a brilliant moment for him to go ahead and do so. He doesn't blink Stalker, so he should be okay against the harassment Mutas, but yeah, Mutas are actually not gonna go after the Prism. Fascinating decision right there by Dark, because he's been dealing with these units for quite a while, and he's like, nah, I am just gonna try and catch my opponent off guard here instead. Relatively passive follow-up, by the way, here from PartinG. Just making a bunch of Colossi. We're gonna go up to Colossus number 3. Very old-school approach to go Stalker Colossi this early on. Anyways, Mutas at this point are well seen because they're murdering probes. 2 workers is acceptable. 3 workers is fine. Problem is these Mutas are gonna hang out for quite a while longer, right? Yeah. And this is well done right here, right now. Good crisis management, as we can always expect. He's been relaying that creep tumor, that creep spread quite a bit, just because he's been, well, forced to delay it. Does not mean he stops doing it entirely. And he did go for a base all the way in the bottom left-hand corner, which I also quite like, because PartinG was always going to check this one with the Prism, right? That is a natural location where you're always going to fly by. But the bottom left-hand corner is kind of far away, and this is not an expansion that our Protoss player currently is aware of. Archon, by the way, did get morphed in. That guy has 13 kills, so that is 2 Dark Templar holding hands. And 1 guy who got bullied by the rest. But at least he's the commanding officer now of the rest of the Protoss army. You love to see it, leading the charge by himself. Alrighty, so PartinG is ready to go for a push. A bit of an old school push. Stalkers and Colossi. Technically a good combination. We have a whole load of sentries, by the way, in the mix too. 11 sentries? That is, I want to say 7 sentries more than we need. This is really old school. I love it. This is what we used to see in like 2013. Back before, you know, corrosive biles were around and you could just pop the force fields. Mutas still being annoying. This is a scary Protoss army though. Dark at this point is maxed out. But you gotta respect his unit composition. Look at that, mass force field. Dark Templar into essentially mass Sentry. Banelings are starting to break through, but obviously, man, they are not quite as tanky as they once used to be. I don't mind this. Colossi, starting to fall. They get so much damage done though. Yeah, the problem is that those mutas in the meantime have killed so much economy, right? So, big picture here, 22 probes have gone down. And that makes what was originally supposed to be a timing attack essentially an all-in. Because PartinG is not really making any additional workers anymore. He is planning on winning this particular game with this army right here. I think if he would have taken a little less damage from the mutas, this would have been a very manageable... Yeah, this would have been a very manageable game. I mean, it could still happen. It's just that at this point, so this is that intersection I was talking about. You see the miserly roaches? Anyways, at this point, Dark's economy is just so big that he can even lose, well, basically an expansion worth of workers, and he should still be okay. He is trying to pull the drones right now, though, just to soak up a few hits. +2 melee is done, so those 24 additional Zerglings that are just about to pop should be quite good. And his Stalker control is really beautiful. I mean, this was a very doable game. I think ultimately this is gonna go in favor of the Zerg. Just because Dark is Dark and he's very good. But against, well, anyone outside of like the top 5 Zerg players in the world, I think PartinG would have crushed him. Obviously, this is just game number 1 in a best of 3 series. Yeah, he's running out of steam. So he did make a few probes once again. But it's just Stalkers at this point. Dark is confident enough as well to continue upgrading his roaches and ravages right now. I mean, you can get an awful lot of value. No way. You can get an awful lot of value out of just Stalkers when you control them well. This is a rediscovered art. PartinG has been doing it for years. MaxPex and Hero have been doing it a lot more recently, but there it is. Game number 1 goes in favor of the Zerg. Alrighty, game number 2. We find ourselves on the map Site Delta. PartinG showing us that those new school strategies, they're cool and all, but that does not mean that the older builds are completely irrelevant. It'd be fun if we saw those making a comeback though, so... Delayed Dark Templar, right? Imagine if those Dark Templar would have hit a little earlier. Then again, it's funny because if they would have shown up earlier, Dark would have made detection earlier too, and he probably would have defended them cleaner than he actually ended up defending them. It's one of those funny mind games where the suboptimal build execution is actually a little better than the optimal one. One of those weird situations. Dark forced to take the 3rd base first? No. He's gonna be rallying a drone across the map. Okay. Hiding the worker over here too. He's got vision with the Overlord. And that should allow him to take the natural here. Late natural though. This is 19 supply and at like 450 minerals. I don't really like that all too much. But I think Dark is planning on going natural into natural. Yeah, because once again, we've got a drone on the other side. This is what he wanted to do in the previous game, but then he saw that he could take the natural. Alright, let's see, PartinG. Let's dance. A proxy hatchery. Do you remember? Do you remember what the perfect approach is? Do we go Zealot? We skip the Zealot, we pull additional probes from the main base instead. Okay, so this is a 6 worker approach. Very frequently we see a Zealot with 4 workers. Small difference. Apparently 6 workers. I mean, 6 workers is enough to basically prevent the hatchery from finishing. So you can see that it's losing HP slightly quicker than it's gaining HP. Obviously, this is expensive though here for PartinG. Problem is that Dark, of course, invested into that additional hatchery, and obviously his worker count is running. It's really not that great. Plus, on top of that, that spawning pool is quite late too. So I think this is okay here for PartinG. Not freaking out. Although, of course, his expansion is incredibly late now. Yeah. There we go. He really wants to prevent that, yeah, from building an Evo chamber or even another hatchery. That would be a disaster. Alright. Dark trying to create chaos. And he got it. But he's playing against a Protoss player who's comfortable in the chaos. This time around, it is going to be a Stargate opener. Drone scouts this immediately. This is one of the things I really do like about proxy hatchery openers, though, right? Like, this is like a macro proxy hatch. In a weird way, it's one of those things where So Dark is just gonna check if that Stargate is gonna get cancelled. But in a weird way, this is like the perfect way to scout, right? Building a hatchery in your opponent's natural is the perfect way to scout. And if the opponent doesn't handle it perfectly, right? If they butcher their follow-up here, or for example, you get into the main base and one of the gases isn't taken yet after you cancel the natural there, you can take one of the gases and really throw that entire Protoss build order off. Like, Zerg and Terran are very build order dependent, don't get me wrong, but Protoss definitely, by far, the most build order dependent race in StarCraft 2. Yeah, you have to be very, deliberate with the way that you position everything. It's gonna be a Void Ray first. Now, I don't like Void Ray first very much, because it kind of seems like a weak play to me. But, yeah, you're gonna kill the Overlord. So the nice thing about a Void Ray first is that you can deny any scouting. So any scouting is going to be denied. Problem is, it's just not that great of a unit overall. So unless you're planning on hiding something, I don't... Oh, you do have to kill that ASAP though. Okay, he's busy microing over here on the other side of the map. Loses an adept for 2 drones. Oh no, he missed it. What? You had one job, buddy. Yeah, he was busy microing that adept. He's looking around. He's looking everywhere. Yeah, it smells like Overlord here, doesn't it? Well, that's a shame. Oracle on the back of this, by the way, is going to spawn in just a moment. Spore crawlers are coming up. Dark, in the meantime, at home, having a grand old time. Goes into an evolution chamber, nice and quickly. Got a load of Zerglings. It's difficult, by the way, to take a third base when you just have a Void Ray. At the very least, it feels tough. So this is a third base that is normally timed in, like, 2017 or so. But in 2024, this one is about a minute late. So now the Oracle shows up, but the Oracle's not going to achieve anything. Nah, no way. I think he should have not gone for the Oracle and made the third base quicker. This Oracle was a complete waste of time. Not only did it, well, cost him a lot of resources and did it achieve nothing so far, it also delayed that third Nexus for a really long time. Look at that, immediately Dark, upon seeing, hey, you're not really getting anything done here, your base is late, I know you're not going to be able to attack me anytime soon, he is going to drone up hard. So Dark is going to sit here at full 3-base saturation. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to take a 4th base here in just a moment. At which point his economy is going to be booming, and he will be able to achieve all of that if he wants to before that third Nexus is even done. Yep, there's the 4th hatch. +1 melee coming up. We've got ourselves a Baneling Nest. He's actually not going for a full saturation. Ooh, we've got 3 gases in total. Mass Ling, +1 melee, and a Baneling Nest? Okay, well, here are the adepts going across the map. This is more than you normally go for. Normally it's 5 adepts together with like 3 oracles. Very powerful composition, but this is blink on the back of this, so no glaives or anything like that. Losing these adepts for free would be a disaster. Dark, by the way, still making Mass Ling. He sees Banelings here as well. I think you have to commit. Yeah, I was gonna say. So Dark is actually just gonna go for a +1 melee Baneling bust. I think that's the plan. Ooh, this is a beautiful catch. Textbook right here from Dark. And he's already going across the map with some of these other units. Does fly by an observer, so at the very least, PartinG is gonna see his faith. But is there anything he can do about it? Oracle flies on over in that direction. Where's that Void Ray? Oh my god. The Void Ray is busy on the other side of the map harassing drones. Ambitious plan. Well, it looks like those Banelings that were originally meant to try and blow up the wall aren't even going to be needed for that. Instead, they're going to be going after whatever they can over at the third base. Lings are now flooding in. More and more Zerglings on the back of this. Banelings, I mean, they're going to hit very hard against these low HP units. Void Ray at the very least is decent here, but still a suboptimal choice. And just like that, it's our Zerg player Dark who obtains the victory over PartinG. Some good decisions being made right here by PartinG, and then some that I put a little asterisk right next to. But it's not so much the execution of the build orders, it's the strategic decisions that he made in this series, right? So game number 1 was really quite clever. Game number 2 just seemed like a Yeah, a playstyle that is several years out of style. And Dark just showed us, yeah, no, you can't do that. With a little bit of like max specs and hero replay analysis though, there's a very good chance that PartinG is gonna get a good understanding of the game within just another few weeks. With a little bit of hero and max specs replay analysis though, there's a very good chance that PartinG can once again get back on top.